Alexander the Great used to be one of, if not the best pre-season of Conquest investment for all players. He was available from Season 2 up until Season of Conquest, and he still is an okay commander. But the issue is, now you access Season of Conquest commanders in KVK 3, so is Alexander the Great still a good commander is a question that we must answer today. If you are interested in Alexander the Great, or if you are considering investing in him, you definitely should check out this video just before you do it. Now, we'll just go over Alexander the Great's skills. I'm sure you've seen him 1,000 times, but if you haven't, let's start off. His active skill, he gains a shield that lasts 4 seconds, which can absorb about 1,200 damage factor. And at the same time, he puts a smaller shield for all his allied troops, including his own troops, with the lowest percentage of units in the circular area of effect. So any troops within the area of effect, the one with the lowest amount of HP, will get a small shield that basically deflects around 600 damage. Very okay skill to be like supporting your marches, but for the most part, a shield active skill with nothing else is nothing too crazy. His second skill, while on the map, troops are immune to all damage reduction debuffs. This means anything that's reducing their damage. For example, it says here, normal attack damage reductions do not work on him. And his normal attacks have a 10% chance to deal a damage factor of 1,700 to the target and reduce its healing effects by 30%. So that is really good, dealing an instant proc damage of 1,700 instead of an active skill damage, and the healing effect reduction is kind of obsolete because now you've got commanders like Gilgamesh who will just delete healing, and if you really want to reduce healing, that's the way you do it. But the healing effect reduction, I guess if you're 1v running a Richard, would be okay. That is a very rare thing to happen nowadays, so I wouldn't really be counting on it. His third skill, he gains 30% march speed and also 30% attack. The stats here are very low if we're being realistic. The march speed's high, but the attack is extremely low, and that is pretty unfortunate. Most commanders nowadays, if they're having only attack, will have 50 to even 60% of attack, rather than just 30%. His fourth skill, when not shielded, he gains another 40% attack, which now at this point, that attack is a lot. And then when shielded, he gains 30% defense instead. So that is once again a nice stat boost on Alexander the Great, but again is also lacking. And now with his expertise, he's improving his active skill. The new thing is he does a debuff to 3 enemy troops in a circular area, making them take 30% increased all damage for 4 seconds. This small shield and all that is still the same with all the stats and the time. So the only thing that changes here is now they get a pretty big debuff, but it's only to 3 targets. And you know commanders like LIANG, who A have more damage factor and B have more utility, can put that debuff on 5 enemies. It is a smaller debuff in terms of the amount, but it is onto 5 enemies. So Alexander the Great's debuff is somewhat obsolete in that regard as well. So there we go. Alexander's skills are very, very simple. And the thing that you've noticed is they're not really that amazing anymore. Like, yes, for a KVK2 commander, they're awesome. Like, that is really good for KVK2. For a season, I guess, 3 commander now, they're not going to keep up with the standard. So the issue that's arisen with all Season 2 commanders, this isn't just an Alexander the Great issue. And it's that now you can access Season of Conquest commanders in Season 3. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is a very big change. It means that within 2 KVKs from the start of the game, you can access the endgame commanders. It used to be up to 9 months. Now it's like 6 to 7 months before you can access endgame commanders. 2 months of that are spent in the off season before any KVKs. 1 month is in KVK 1 where anything goes, and you've only got KVK 2 where really real commander combinations start to become evident. So the thing with Alexander the Great is he is in that 1 KVK where people use some somewhat okay combos. And that's where the issue comes in. Why would you get an Alexander the Great when you could get someone like an Artemisia or like a Joan Prime or a Scipio Africanus? All of these other commanders are better than Alexander the Great. You have options such as the Scipio Africanus. Scipio Africanus' active skill is a 2000 damage AoE with a reduction of 30% health to the 3 targets he hits for 3 seconds. He has a shield on his 4th skill. His 2nd skill is getting a ton of attack and a ton of march speed. On his 3rd skill, he's getting a ton of health, and also he has a chance to deal even more damage factor. There are commanders now that you can just access so much earlier than Alexander the Great that make Alexander the Great somewhat obsolete. So this means for most players, if we're being realistic, and you're in Season 2, you probably should skip Alexander the Great. The only time I would consider getting Alex is if you are a semi-high spender and you want to buy him from the daily special offer for your KVK2. In that situation, he will be good because once you get to Season 3, if you're a high spender, you'll probably go for more than just 1 infantry march, or you'll probably go for an infantry march, an archer march, and a cav march, and putting in Alexander the Great with a Scipio Africanus still works. Like, it's still a combination that's going to trade okay. The only issue is using a Scipio Africanus with an Alexander the Great is not going to trade better than a Scipio with a Guan. It's not going to trade better with this than a Scipio with a Sargon. It's not going to trade better than a Scipio and a Tarek. So right there are just 3 commanders right off the bat that just beat Alexander the Great. And the only thing is, you have to wait 1 KVK for it. The only reason I used to say that Alexander the Great was a good investment was because you need something pre-Season of Conquest for Season 2 and 3. That would have been 6 months of basically not fighting or fighting very suboptimally. But nowadays, you could just finish your KVK 1, possibly take YSG up. Even if you don't have to. And just stash gold heads from your VIP. Stash gold heads from your Ark of Osiris. All of these events allow you to stash a lot of gold heads and then get yourself possibly a max commander and a very decent high-level secondary commander for a Season 3 commander. For example, let's say you're a player who's just hit Season 3 and you want to be an Archer main like myself. And you've stashed up, let's say, 800 gold heads, because I think that's fairly reasonable in 9 months. You get yourself a max Boudica and you take a LIANG to 5511. That's much, much better than an Alexander the Great will ever do. It's certainly going to destroy an Alexander the Great YSG. It's going to beat an Alexander the Great with Scipio. And even then, if you were an infantry man, you have 800 gold heads, which once again is pretty reasonable to do within 9 months. You get yourself a Scipio Africanus and a Sargon, or a Scipio and a Tarek, or a Scipio and a Guan. And all of those commanders are going to beat an Alexander the Great any day. This means that Alexander the Great's value has greatly diminished for an investment. He is not a good investment anymore compared to the other commanders. He is being now ranked against those Season of Conquest commanders, which makes him a not amazing commander. Now, there is some hope for Alexander the Great. We know that he will be getting a okay museum relic soon, and this may make him a usable commander for the players who did invest in him. But once again, getting relics is really tough, and there are probably some commanders out there who just have better relics. For example, I can assure you, Mehmed's relic is going to be more valuable to most players than an Alexander the Great relic. And I've spoke about relics before and how they are super expensive now. They're not cheap like they used to be. If you're getting a relic, you have to save up for it. It's going to take you upwards of half a year to double relic a single commander, let alone getting these new overpriced Season 2 relics. They cost 2,200 relic coins. Now, for a lot of players who are just in Season 2 now or have just entered Season 3, they're having this issue where all of these new commanders are being thrown at them out of the blue, since Lilith didn't give anyone much time to really grasp this. They just said randomly in an update patch note, oh yeah, we're bringing Season of Conquest commanders to Season 3. Yes, it was a good idea, but the issue was people were just kind of taken aback from it. Some players who had an Alexander the Great, like, just gotten him because they knew that he was going to be good until Season of Conquest, were screwed over because now you can get a Scipio Africanus. And if you have an Alexander the Great right now, I'm going to quickly tell you the best way to get the most value from him, and this is the simplest way. Take him up to 5551, so max his first 3 skills and leave his last skill. This will keep you a good level Alex that's going to still work on the field in Season 3, and it's going to give you some value in Season of Conquest. With that 5551 Alex, you put him with a Scipio Africanus. This Scipio is going to basically be the carry of the combo, and you try to expertise the Scipio. He is worth it in my opinion, being the best infantry commander. So an Alexander the Great with a Scipio is going to carry you a lot of value in Season 3. If you are a whale though, this isn't as important to you. You could run an Alex with a Tarek, or an Alex with a Sargon, or even Alex with a Harold. But if you've already got an Alex, don't worry, you could just get yourself a Scipio, and he's still going to be usable. The only thing is, he's not going to be as good as some of the other commanders that are out there, and he's definitely not the number 1 option for most players anymore. If you do really want an Alex nowadays for whatever reason, and you just want to unlock him, then I can say that if you just want to use him for Season 2 and only Season 2, he's a 1-season investment, and that means you don't want to take him above 5511. If you already have him at 5511 and you're not in Season 3 yet, then it's the time you choose whether or not you take him to 5551 to use him with Scipio Africanus. But if not, there's always the chance to bench a commander. I had my Nebu bench for a freaking while, if I'm being realistic. Like, he just came into my field marches now at 5511. So if you've chosen a commander to go to 5511, yes, it's unfortunate if you don't use him, but the world will not end. Don't worry. Even if you have a commander sitting on your bench that may be able to get you some kills, you're better off leaving him there if they're going to trade negatively. There is no point bringing out a March, especially if you don't have billions upon billions of resources, that is not going to trade positive or at least even with your opponents, because otherwise you are just burning through resources. And most players have more time than they do resources in Rise of Kingdoms, especially if they're running upwards of 2 marches. Even 1 march can be very costly to run for a whole KVK. So if you have more than one March and one of those commanders that you do have at your disposal isn't Alexander the Great, but you've got better options like a CP Africanus and possibly a Sargon or a Guan in Season 3, then just bench the Alex if we're being realistic. I wouldn't use him, he's not worth the resources. If he's maxed, then maybe you could consider using him and possibly bringing in another infantry commander. But if your Alex is like 5511 right now, possibly you just consider stopping and not investing in him anymore and just forget about him. Forget he exists because he's not going to bring you any value as a free to play. As a whale, maybe because he's got high instant proc damage and a lot of like defensive stats. But for most free to play players, if your Alex gets hit, it's gonna die. So just stick with those marches that are going to be powerful. And right now, stop investing in any of those Season 2 or even those Season 1 commanders. Now, I know this video was very short, but it was aimed to bring as much value to those pre-Season of Conquest players as I could, because I don't want those players messing up now and investing in Alex by seeing all the old videos from people saying Alexander the Great's good, get Alexander the Great. Even my old videos saying get Alexander the Great are pretty much void now because Alexander the Great just isn't good. If you do want to see more information on rallying in KVKs, then consider checking out yesterday's video. I discuss everything you need to know about being a rally leader and how to rally properly, because a lot of players do mess it up and it is very costly to a kingdom, so you'd rather be safe than sorry. The video will be on the end screen in a couple of seconds. Now, I do thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.